people with expired non-disclosure agreements. What's the juicy info you can now tell us? I was given a near-fatal overdose of Tylenol as a toddler at a daycare called La Petite. The young worker walked away when I was on a diaper-changing table. When I rolled over and fell off, I ended up breaking my femur and was understandably wailing my little cubby head off. She was afraid to get fired, so she kept feeding me painkillers until I stopped crying. Turns out that's a bad thing. Well, safe to say I spent over a week in the hospital and some time in a full body cast. My legs got stunted just enough to make my legs just a bit shorter than my torso in portion. Medical bills were paid, and I got $25,000 in an annuity. Plus the girl got fired, but no prosecuted. My parents refused to press charges on her cause they believe in second chances and forgiveness. $25,000 is not enough if you have permanent effects. Damn. Welcome to negotiations with a corporation, and your parents are good God-fearing, forgive and forget kind of people. Only slightly peeved by it. Geez Louise. You should try harder not to fall off the changing table next time. Seriously though, I'm sorry that happened to you. Is your liver okay? That must have been hell on your poor little organs. Sure. I was on the team that designed SpaceX Starlink factory in Redmond, Washington. That never got built. From start of project to finish it only took 4 weeks, a record. SpaceX also wanted a 50-foot deep hole in the middle of the building, but we weren't told why. Building was around 80,000 SQFTL. Also, Elon likes to have a backdoor on all of his factories, for which only he has a key so that he can secretly enter the building and watch the goings-on from a little alcove above the floor. If you have a Comcast voice remote and you say, "Make Robert happy," it will turn the TV to Doctor Who. There used to be a lot of hidden voice commands in the system. We had to take a lot of them out over time, but that one is still in there. Edit. A couple people have asked me who Robert is. He is one of the software engineers working on the voice remote system. As a proof of concept early on he put that in, and just never removed it. Edit 2. Some people are asking for another one. If you say Big Boss, it'll make your TV go to an empty page left over for the Minions movie and make your TV play a Minion noise. It seems they removed a lot of them, but that one is still there too. Just tested this. 100 true. My company used to sell a lot of KNR insurance. Not telling anyone you have KNR insurance is one, or at least top 5. Edit. Wow, I went out for a hike, came back, and this blew up. See, the folks who kidnap you want to have good customer service. Why? Because if they kill you, then no money is given, or very little for the body. You're worth much more alive. This whole unfortunate event is really a business deal for us, and it's in your best interest to keep the emotional people out of it as much as possible. One of the worst things you could say is something like, "I'll do anything, we have a lot of money," etc. We have great negotiators who know when they can step up the pressure, and when to back down, when to answer the phone, and when not to. The initial ransom request and what the kidnappers ultimately get is most always very far apart. Edit 2. I don't want to minimize the emotions. There is some crazy stuff that goes on, and certainly extreme mental and emotional distress as well as physical abuse. Some cannot be avoided. Like some really messed up stuff. We tried to minimize harm and payouts. No, that a lot of the policy obviously revolves around prevention. So many facets to this. South America, Northern Africa, and some Middle East areas are the busier regions. Also on the rise are express kidnappings. Any questions? If you get kidnapped and the kidnapper is holding a gun to your head asking if you have it or not, what do you do? Do you tell them you do, lie, or say, "I'm sorry sir, but legally I am not allowed to disclose that information to you"? Pretty sure once you're kidnapped then that rule goes out the window. You're not supposed to tell people, so they won't kidnap you in the first place. Had to sign an NDA in order to reforest an artillery range. That was last active in the 1920s, just in case we found some high-tech military secrets from 90 years ago. This is an interesting subject. I'm not an expert, but I did work in the defense industry for a long time as a civilian contractor. I spent a few years working in jobs specifically created to safeguard classified information. It seemed to me if the Navy thought something was potentially interesting without any real guidance, they would classify it as secret and call it a day. No need to make it top secret unless there was a pressing need. In the case of secret material, it automatically became declassified 25 years later. Of course, the government can, and has, intervene and continue its classification beyond 25 years. But I remember printing stickers that used software to compute to the day exactly 25 years into the future. But 90 years? I really can't imagine anything still being classified after 90 years, unless it's alien laser nuclear time travel or something. That the charter school I taught for was in reality a Scientologist school. We had to do training in Scientology after school for 2 hours a day. We had to sign a NDA to get our 1,000 bonus for doing the non-elective training. Those parents had no idea the school was Scientology. We did not teach them how to be Scientologists, but we certainly used the terminology and L. Ron's ideas. This was about 25 years ago before we knew much about Scientology. I didn't buy in and I wasn't invited back the following year. The school dissolved about 4 years later. I applied for a job and they sent me that L. Ron Hubbard Scientology personality test before even offering an interview. Couldn't tell if it was a joke, but I filled it out anyway and I was never called for an interview. The job was for making clay tiles at a small studio. They post job openings pretty frequently though. One of the more bizarre experiences I've had used to be in banking. IT. Mid-2008, and the subprime mortgage crisis hits. Banks start failing everywhere. Not ours. So one day my boss calls and says go to rooms on the executive floor, and don't tell anyone, or talk to anyone. I walk in proudly in my high-class duck hats from Target, and an Izod. Suits all around. Expensive suits. CEO, CFO, legal. And the SEC. They had a stack of papers for me to sign. Multiple NDAs, as well as I won't buy stock and other investment stuff. Multiple secrecy documents. I was being put on a mergers and acquisitions team. Basically any bank that was failing was sold to bigger banks to gobble up. This was all to protect the market, of course. So basically about every 2 to 3 weeks for almost a year I would be minding my own business at work and randomly get a call. I would have to go to a room with no windows where a small team that would include the CFO was given a failing bank's details by the SEC, and we had 24 hours to decide if we wanted to buy it. Then we had to pack our bags and go seize the bank with the feds. All my buddies knew that when I was in that room shit was about to go down. But I could never talk about it until after the event, and by then we were usually on to the next one. It was a crazy time to be in banking. Watching the president of an 8-branch local bank piss his pants when the feds walk in and he realizes he's not only out of a job, but has lost his life savings is not fun. I assume mine expired when they fired me. If not, I don't care, so here goes. We tested essential oils for at least 2 MLM companies and their claims are complete nonsense. The only ingredient in the formulation on the report I read that had any antimicrobial efficacy was the coconut oil. They were aiming to show how their products were germ-killing, but the only germ-killing component was the vehicle, what is basically the base, usually the inactive ingredient. They will still instruct their sellers to say things like, our oils kill toxins or cancer, or whatever, but almost none of these claims are proven or registered with the EPA or FDA. If they are, they can be accessed online, hence the term, registered claim. TLDR, don't believe any claims from DOTERRA and Young Living. Man, why can't people just be this? Will make your home smell nice and probably relax you a bit and leave it there. I really like essential oils as fragrances, but damn if some of the people into them are cuckoo bananas. My wife was born in Vietnam, her mother met and married a Navy officer, and he adopted my wife and her sister, and got them all out of Vietnam in 1972, saving their lives. The majority of my mother-in-law's family were well-off business people, and were ethnically Chinese, and were executed by the communists. My wife's dad passed away long ago, and my wife never did learn very much about his time in the Navy. All she could tell me was he was involved with submarines. 3 years ago we visited my wife's mom in Hawaii, and she gave us a trove of stuff, pictures, and papers she thought were related to his Navy career. The first thing I find is his service record. Holy shit, my wife's dad was a badass. Joined the Navy in 1940, was chief mechanic on submarines during WWII, earns 3 battle stars. Then all kinds of work on advanced submarines, then later in his career some really weird assignments, like hauling stuff up to Alaska for defense radar sites, or decommissioning ships that were used in nuclear bomb tests. It took a couple of weeks, but one day I noticed that his naval career ended in 1960, but my wife said he was a naval commander when he met my wife's mother. I asked my wife about this, and she was a bit confused. I asked what his uniform was like, and she says khaki pants, white shirt. I tell her that it doesn't sound like he was in the Navy, and she must be mistaken. Then she tells me this beauty. No, he had to be in the Navy, because he went somewhere in a submarine, and came back with crabs. I had to translate the argument between him and my mom. I'm really confused now, so I look at some other paperwork we had from the trove. There was a folder that contains some certificates from a Chicago-based air conditioning repair program, plus a certificate for electrical work, dated 1961. Then the real answer revealed itself. It was his employment documentation for USAID. Turns out my wife's adoptive father was CIA station chief in Saigon during the Vietnam War, and she never knew. Her dad never revealed anything at it. I no longer think he was station chief, just CIA, who had people reporting to him. That's fascinating. I'd watch that TV show. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more upcoming videos. Have an amazing day.